Hello everybody, welcome to my channel. My name is Evelyn of Pink Sheep Design, and today I am bringing you a new tutorial. It's been a while. We have been super busy moving and I'm finally getting things together, and I'm really excited to finally get the opportunity to focus a little bit more on my YouTube channel, at least with this tutorial. Hopefully we'll have more, but I am partnering with MUUD Living for this tutorial. We are going to be creating a bag using one of these pre-drilled hole bag bottoms. This is their DXL bag bottom in whiskey, the color whiskey. They have black and whiskey. I've always wanted to make one of these, so I'm really excited to get to share the tutorial with you guys of how I'm creating this bag, so you can try it for yourself. All the information on where to get this, as well as the yarn that I'm going to be using and the hook that I'm going to be using, is going to be in the description, so you can find all of those links there. I haven't even taken this off yet. Let's open this up and look. I wanted the longer one, so I chose the longer shoulder strap, so it can actually be a crossbody style bag. I am the type of person who needs a crossbody bag, or I am going to leave my bag. So this is a great option. You see it's got the adjustable link here, obviously matching set. I am going to be using a 5.5mm hook. So this is a clover style hook with our hybrid 3D printed handles. You can find these in our Etsy shop. Nice, ergonomic, lightweight. But I chose this because I literally took a whole bunch of hook sizes and stuck them through the hole until it was easy to put it through the hole. Because, you know, I've got to pull the yarn back out as well. So you don't want it to be too tight of a fit to get in there, but I also didn't want it to be too small, since I'm going to be using chunkier yarn for this project. I'm pretty sure that I have settled on using this hooked Cordino yarn. This is a cotton yarn. It's a tubular style shoestring ribbon-esque kind of yarn. Highly recommend the cotton tubular and ribbon style yarns for this project, just because they tend to last. It's a cotton, so the structure is nice for bags. This is another one that I had considered. It's just a ribbon yarn by Hooked. So you can see that, again, tubular style, a lot flatter. This is more of a flat shoestring style ribbon yarn. And then this is a tubular yarn that I had found on Amazon. This would be a really good option too, because it's got that tubular. The other great thing about this kind of yarn is that it's not going to pill easily and get fuzzy as you're using it. So that's really nice because of the structure of this yarn. I think that something like Lion Brand Wool Ease Thick and Quick would work really well for this project. So if you've got some of that laying around, maybe you've got a super bulky 100% acrylic yarn, that tends to hold up really well also. So super bulky yarn, 5.5mm hook, bag bottom, check, strap check, and we're gonna flip the camera around and get started. I'm really winging this. I did not write down a pattern. I played around with it a little bit just to make sure that I could pull the yarn through these holes with this 5.5mm hook. But we're going to kind of do this as we go along and see how it turns out. I'm going to start in this corner. So I think starting in any of the four corners, because there is going to be a seam on this bag. I'm not a huge fan of working round. I'll forget to place a stitch marker and I'll forget where I'm at. And I've just never really liked working in seamless rounds. So I like to have a seam to end each row. So I went ahead and created a slip knot, placed it on my hook. And I'm going to insert my hook into that space, yarn over, pull the yarn through, yarn over, and pull through to create my first single crochet. Now I want to make sure that I start on the side where the logo is. So that's going to be on the bottom of the bag, and I'll be working around this direction. So we'll be working up from that. So make sure this is going to be the bottom side of the bag. What I decided to do on this foundation row is to do a single crochet followed by a chain stitch. All right. Then I'm going to place my second single crochet. Now this is going to be the most difficult row that you do on this because you're having to work through these holes. They don't have a lot of give. This is genuine leather that MUUD uses, so there's not a lot of give there when you're going through it. It's very thick. You can see in here the thickness of this bag bottom, so it should be very sturdy, which I'm very excited about. Like I said, I've always wanted to make one of these with the pre-made bottoms, just to give the bag a little more structure and really to dress it up. Like, I think that's, it's a very different look to the bag when you've got the leather bottom like that. All right, so you can see I'm just working single crochet, chain stitch, single crochet, chain stitch, single crochet, on and on. And we are going to work this all the way around the bag. I am going to try to place a single crochet, chain, and then another single crochet into this space. So there will be 2 single crochets into the same corner space with 1 chain stitch in between. And I'm going to do that in each of the corners to give myself a nice turning radius for that. I am going to work all the way around and we'll meet back up where we join on this side. I have worked the combination of single crochet and chains all the way around. You can see the 2 single crochet stitches in this corner with a chain stitch in between. And I'm going to work these last couple stitches here with you. And then I'm going to put another single crochet into the same space as the first one. Yarn over, pull that through. Now I'm going to chain 1, and then I'm going to join into the first single crochet stitch. There we go. Okay, so from here, I'm going to go ahead and chain 1, and then I'm going to turn my work. So I'm going to be working around into the back side of these stitches. And I'm also going to go from this 5/5 up to a 6mm hook. All right, so same style, just 1 up, because from here I'm going to be working into the chain space holes, right, for this first round after the foundation. So I've chained 1, and I'm going to work into this first chain space in between these 2. Let's see. I'm going to put that there. Now I want to make sure that my stitches aren't super tight, so I want to make sure that I pull up on that loop because this is going to tighten this up, but I wanted it to tighten the bag up so that it's not super loose around the outside. So I'm not going to be putting a chain space in between these. I'm just going to go directly into the next chain space in between these 2 and place my next single crochet. Let's see, I'm keeping my tension nice and loose as I do this. I'm not doing a super tight stitch there, right? And that's another reason why I went up on the hook size. So going into each of those chain spaces and placing a single crochet stitch. There we go. And I'm going to do this all the way around. Now I do believe I'm only going to put 1 single crochet into this corner space, into the chain space between these 2. Here, and again, I'm pulling up on that loop so that it's not going to be too tight of a stitch. All right, and see, that's going to curve my corner in. It's already starting to pull up. So I'm going to come in here. There you go. So you can see that corner forming when I went around that way. All right, here we are. I have worked single crochet stitches into each of the chain spaces all the way around, and you can see this has started to curve the bag up. We're now getting a little structure there, all the way around. If you're struggling to keep your stitches loose enough, then you can use one size even larger. So I'm using a 6, but you could bump up to like a 6.5 or a 7 if you needed to, if you're struggling to keep your stitches loose enough here. All right, so I've got one more here. All right, and then from here, I'm going to be joining into this very first single crochet stitch with a slip stitch. So I'm going to push that through, yarn over, pull through, and chain 1. And then from here, we are just going to be creating our rows all the way around with single crochet, but I'm going to turn my work in between. So for this row, I worked into the back side of these stitches. So I was working into the inside of the bag. But for the next row, I'm going to turn my work again, and I'm going to be working into the outside of the bag. And so on this one, I created my chain, chained 1, and then I'm going to work from here, just single crochet stitches into the back side of each of these stitches. Again, keeping my tension loose, not too loose, but just not, I'm trying not to, you know, put a death grip on my crochet hook. And the main thing is you want to create enough tension to give you structure, but not so much tension that your bag starts to do this. And starts to pull inward. You want it to have a little bit of give here. One of the main reasons that I wanted to turn my work in between rows is because we are going to have a seam because we're joining after each round. And when you turn your work in between rows, it tends to help hide the seam. If you're not turning between your rows, usually a seam will try to run diagonally up the side of the item that you're making. And this should help hide that a little bit. When I come back for the next part of this video, I will be able to show you something that looks a lot more like a usable bag, and I will let you know how many rows I do, because I do want this to be a fairly tall bag. I am back with an update on the progress for this tote, and I'm super excited to share this with you because it's coming out great. The first big update is that I ended up going from a 6.5 millimeter up to an 8 millimeter hook. So as you guys know, I started this very first round with a 5.5 millimeter hook, you know, just to make sure that the stitches were good. But when I switched to a 6 millimeter hook, I felt like the stitches were still a little too tight and it just wasn't giving the shape that I wanted for the bag. And so I played around with the sizes and ended up landing on an 8 millimeter hook. So again, this is one of our 3D printed hybrid 8 millimeter hooks. It's a Susan Bates. And I really like these for this kind of yarn because it's easy to push that tip through the stitches. So that's really nice, especially working with this kind of, you know, cottony yarn. So I am loving how this is turning out now. The stitches look great. I'm turning between my rows so you guys can see this is where the seam is. And it's barely visible, which is what I love about turning between rows. It really hides that seam really, really nicely while allowing me to continue to do a slip stitch to end each row. So I'm going to show you guys how I switch to my next color. So I'm doing blocks of color and I'm just finishing out one of these for each row. So let's do a quick switch over so you guys can see how I do that. So I'm going to end it the same way. I have this ready, and then I am going to start the slip stitch by inserting my hook into this first single crochet, but I'm going to wrap around just like this with this new yarn and pull through to create the slip stitch with the new color. Then I'm going to pull it tight, and then from here, switch this around, I'm going to chain 1, turn my work just like I would have with the other color, as so. There we go. And then I'm going to continue around on my next round with this new color. So this creates a pretty seamless color change. I'm a big fan of this method of color change. Obviously you can change colors however you want. You may not even be changing colors for this bag. But I really like the way that that creates a nice smooth transition, and I'm going to continue working around. So I thought at this point I want this to be a pretty tall bag. So let's lift this back up again. Because what I'm thinking about doing, this is really, you guys are getting to be right here with me in the creative process, because I didn't have an exact idea of how I wanted this bag to look or what the exact style was going to be. So I think what I'm going to do is make it really, really tall. I say really tall, quite tall. I'll probably do at least, I'd say 3 or 4 more rows, because what I'd like to do is have the ability to cinch the top of the bag while still having both handles and the crossbody strap. So that's my goal, you know, and I still don't know exactly how I want to attach the straps, or like the regular straps or the crossbody strap, because I do want it to have some nice structure to it. I don't want it to stretch the bag out too much, although I do feel like this single crochet is going to lend to a nice structure already, even when it's full of stuff. But it already looks great. I'm so excited, and I will catch back up with you guys when I make a little bit more progress. Oh, you guys, I am so excited about how this is turning out. I wanted to do a check-in because I have completed the body of the bag. I completed 40 rows for my bag. So I'm going to go ahead and show you how I started my straps, because this is what my final strap is going to look like. I am using the same yarn and the same hook size for my strap, and I am working 3 stitches across for let's see, I believe I did 22 rows. Let me measure it for you just in case. Measuring tape here. So I made my strap 22 inches long. All right, so even if you don't have the same gauge as me, I'm working with 22 inches. So you're going to work these single crochet rows until your strap is 22 inches long. I'm going to start with my slip knot. I'm going to chain 4. There we go. I like to flip my chain over and work my first row into these back bumps. So you can see these back little bumps right here. So I'm going to slip my hook into the first back bump. Kind of have to use my fingernail to get underneath there. And I'm just working a single crochet stitch into that bump. Same thing here. I've got this back bump right here. So I'm going to work into that. Single crochet. 1 more. There we go. So that's my first row. Chain 1, turn my work, and then I'm just working my rows of single crochet just like you normally would. You're not doing anything special. Working into that last stitch. Chain 1, turn again. There you go. And again, we're just going to be working this until your strap is about 22 inches long. I did not tie off the end for this strap, because what I'm going to do is I am going to, from here, I'm going to work, let's get all this out of the way. Whoop. I'm going to work a single crochet border all the way around, just to even up and clean up these edges and make the straps just a little bit thicker. So I've got a really nice base to be seaming up onto the bag. So what you're going to do here is, once you get to your final row, you're going to chain 1, and then I'm not going to turn my work or anything. I'm going to work into the side of my stitches. All right. So that's my first one. And I'm going to go into the side of each row. And this should make a nice clean edge. And I'm going to do that all the way down. So you can see how nice that looks. Just going to clean that edge up. All right. So I'm going to continue around all the way around here. When I get to the corner, I'm going to place two single crochets in this corner right here, and then one here, two here in this corner, and then I'm going to continue all the way around, do the same thing here. I'm going to place 2 stitches here, one here, 2 here, and then I'm going to join into this very first stitch from this row right here. I'm going to join into this one. All right, so I will meet you guys back. I'm going to finish both of my straps, and then we are going to attach the straps. I will be using a lucite fork to create the drawstring for my bag. You can find these in our Etsy shop, and I will also link the tutorial down below on how to use these to create I-cord, because we're going to create an I-cord that we're going to use as the drawstring to pull this tight. All right, we are back with finished straps. You can see this one here and number 2. So we've got our straps, and I've also got my I-cord. This is really great stretchy cording that's good to use for things like drawstrings and straps. The way that I'm going to do this, I should be able to just push these through. Now I'm going to lay the bag flat. All right, so I kind of pinched the sides so that this bottom would just fold up nicely so that this is as straight as possible. And this is going to be nice and even here, and I want to find the middle. So let's grab a stitch marker, and let's place a stitch marker right here in the center. I am just eyeballing it because I don't think it matters all that much on the bag. It doesn't have to be exactly perfect, but we're going to call that centered. And I'm going to start just a little bit off of the center. I did 6 rows, so let's go 3 down. Is that right? 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Yeah, so we'll be right in the center of this stripe because I did 6 stripes on this one. Okay, and if we don't like it, we can always change that. So I'm going to push this through and pull that through the back. And I am going to give myself plenty of room here. And I can always adjust that, but that will be what sticks out the front. And then we're going to count over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 maybe. Let's do 5 and see how that looks. So I went through one side. Now I'm going to go through the other side and just push that through. And I should be able to use a crochet hook too. It's always an option. So I'm going to count over 5 again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I'll be going in right around the seam here. So I'm going to stick that crochet hook into the edge right here and just pull that through. See how that works. Yeah, that's an option too. I didn't really want to stretch out the cord, which I feel like it can do that sometimes if you do it that way. All right. So let's count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We're coming in right in here. There we go. And I'm going to continue that all the way around the bag. So I do need to even the straps out a little bit. All right, that is much closer to being even there. And now we can pull this tight. Oh yeah, that looks very nice. And the way that I like to finish these ends off is I actually like to tie a knot at the end here. I like to try to get it at the very end, if at all possible, as close as I can to the bottom, while still being able to see the knot. So it makes it a little bit of a style implement as well, just like that. And then what I like to do at the end is I'll take a tapestry needle and I will work the yarn back up into some of the spaces here. So I want to work it through a couple of the spaces, a couple of the stitches, like that. And then I work it up into the knot. There we go. And then I'm going to work it through a couple of stitches around the knot. Just kind of going in and out, just like weaving in your ends, you know, giving it some stability there. Let's find another one right here, see if I can work. Oh, make sure it doesn't go through. I'm using this corded style, likes to try to slip in between the stitches in the cord. You don't want that. All right. So now I'm going to go back through the knot. And then I'm going to snip it close so that you can't see it. And that makes a nice, clean, knotted end. Okay, so I opened this back up to actually put these stitch markers in place to kind of tack this down to see how this looks. And I really do like the idea of it being starting just at this line, about 5 inches down from the top here. And I'm going to re-cinch the bag and see how this looks. So is that, yep, there we go, got it all the way cinched. So that is how that's going to cinch the strap. This is what we're looking like right now. And I wanted to be sure that there was enough space. And I know this strap is going to stretch a little bit. So you guys can see as I wear this, the strap is going to stretch down a little bit, and I don't want to rip the stitch markers off the bag. But I feel like that's going to be a nice placement for both of the straps. I do plan on flipping the strap and seaming it so that it looks more like a purse strap. So we're actually going to be stitching this part around, and it'll make it easier to fit both straps onto the shoulder like that. But I feel like that's a good placement. So we're going to go ahead and sew both straps in place. I am going to start on this one right here and show you guys how I planned on seaming the straps into place. Now there's lots of things lots of stitch options you can use to put straps in place. But I'll show you my favorite method. I don't know if it has a name or anything. But what I like to do, and I'm going to make sure I have pull through more than enough thread to go around. That should be just fine. All right, now I know I'm going into the seam right here, and I already have this one in place. So once I go through this side, I'm going to go around underneath and back through this one of the stitches down here on the corner. And I'm going to pull that all the way through, and then I'm going to go back into the back side of the same stitch that I went into this direction to start. So I'm going to pull that through and pull that tight. Now from here, I'm going to go into the top side of the next stitch, and then I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to go underneath and around. And let's see, I went under this one, so I'm going to kind of count down from here, right there. So I'm going to go around and underneath. Let's see, I think I'm one over. So let's go under here. Is that right? Yep. So I'm going to go around and underneath. There we go. And then I'm going to go into the back side of the stitch that I worked into the front of. There we go. All right, into the front side. Then around and underneath. and then into the back side of that same stitch. I just really like the way that this creates kind of a more invisible seam. You can't see it going over the top of this either. You just see your nice straight lines around the sides here. So I'm going to repeat that again. Let's do one more. And as you guys, I'm sure, can tell, the single crochet, because we worked alternating rows, turning as we went, the stitches aren't even. So like you go from here over and back and over, so you've kind of got a little bit of a diagonal that you're going with. So that's why this one was a little further away, and then I'm going into a stitch that's a little bit closer on this one. And make sure, take some time to feel underneath. Make sure you're not going under stitches from the other side of the bag. It's harder to do with this kind of yarn because it's so thick, but if you are using another type of yarn, sometimes it's easy to snag yarn from the bottom panel. So you want to make sure you don't actually sew your bag together. I've had that happen. Okay, so I did also want to show you guys that I work across here in a similar fashion. I'm going to see what I can do across here because I don't want to leave that open. I do want to actually go all the way around just to make sure we've got some nice stability to the bag. So the stitch markers here, and that is helpful using stitch markers, or as you can see on this side, I actually just used some scrap yarn to put this here instead of a stitch marker. Both work. It's nice to tack it into place first so you know where you want your stitches to go and you know where you want them to end. Very, very helpful. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and remove that stitch marker, go into that same space that it was marking, and then go back through the back of this. Okay, and let's see, I am kind of winging it here because I can't remember how I did this in the past, but I'm guessing I'm going to just go into this next stitch right across from here, pull this back so I can see what I'm doing, and go into, yeah, I'm just going to go into the stitch right next to this one. So this is, you can see where I looped around this one. So I'm going to loop around this one and go right back into the same space, just like I had been. And I'm making sure I'm kind of pulling tight as I go. Right? And actually, I think I could also go through here, and that'll kind of hide my through stitch. So if I go through there and then through here, that'll make it easier to not see that crossover as I'm going across the top. All right, I'm going to go through the next stitch, go back through where I came from, go through the cross stitch, go into the next stitch space, pull through, whoop, lost my yarn. Pull through, okay, and then through the next space I can kind of pull this back and see where I left off, and back through the hole. Where did I come from? There we go. Okay, looking good, looking good. So far, we are looking great. We are quite attached here on this part. So for here, I'm just going to have to go straight through here. I guess I could try and go through one of these, but I'm just going to end up going straight down. So I'm just going to go straight into this one, see where I'm at. There we go. back up through the side. And then we start the process over again down. Now, you're going to see some of this color pull through, and that's because I pulled that so tight. So if you don't pull it quite as tight, you may not pull the color through. Doesn't bother me though, it's right there behind it. But you can play around with that if it bothers you. All right, so from here, I'm pulling out that marker. I'm going to continue the exact same process all the way around, kind of pulling this back to see where I'm at. Going under and around the stitch, and then back into the back side of the stitch you went through. Now I'll go ahead and finish this just to make sure that you guys don't get lost or forget or any of that. But this is my favorite way to attach any kind of patch pocket, strap, anything to bags. I'm not even really sure where I learned it. I think it was just trial and error for me to land on this technique. I'm sure it's been done before. I just don't think that I learned it this way specifically from anyone or any video. It just seemed to make sense. All right. Let's go around this way, pull it out a little bit. I hope you guys have enjoyed watching this video as almost more of a creative process video than just a tutorial. I thought it might be nice to almost wing it in a way. You know, I went in with kind of part of a plan, you know, I kind of had a plan for what I wanted, but I really wanted it to be more of a way for you guys to see that creative process at work and see how I make those decisions of, you know, what to do next. And you know, maybe you've got an idea in your head and it may not work out exactly as planned, but it's nice to see, okay, well then how do you shift? You know, how do you shift and continue to create something that you know you're going to like, even if it wasn't the exact vision that you had in your head to begin with. I'm also a big fan of everything not being exactly perfect. I luckily have never been super meticulous about my crochet projects being perfect, which is kind of nice because I was one of those kids who was like you know, B's never good enough. I need to get an A, you know, very perfectionist when it came to that. And I think it was really nice to find a craft where I realized it's okay for it not to be exactly perfect. It's handmade. It's one of a kind. It's unique. So I'm not so hard on myself when I'm creating things. I like for them to, you know, sometimes they're a little wonky, but you love them even more. But this is about as perfect as I'm going to get it. I think it's pretty even. I think it turned out pretty nice. I do feel like I went out a little bit more on this side because it kind of stretches into your stitch, whichever stitch you choose to go into. I do feel like it widens a little bit here and pulls that out. But again, I don't think it's detrimental. You know, it's not going to bother me. I like it. Okay, so I'm going to pull this through, and that's what I do next. So next I pull all of these ends through the bag to the inside. I'm going to snip this end, leaving myself nice long tails, especially when you're using yarn like this that is not easy to weave in or tie into place. I like to leave them nice and long so that I can create knots on the inside of the bag to finish my work off. So I'll show you how I do that with this yarn. So flipping this inside out, you can see the seam right along here that we created. Now for this one, this is pretty close. I'm going to go underneath one more. I like the strands to be very close together to create the knots, but they don't need to be coming through the same stitch. They do need at least some stitching in between them to hold that knot in place so they won't slip out the back side. So from here, I'm going to cross over once and cross over again. So it's like a double knot inside a double knot, because I'm going to do that once and then I'm going to do it again. So cross once, cross twice, and knot, and pull that knot nice and tight. Now, I'm not going to snip this long one. I'm only going to snip the shorter of the two. Then I'm going to take the long one and I'm going to weave it through to meet up with this one so that I can tie another knot and I don't have to worry about weaving this end in. So we are going to go through, and I don't want to go through to the other side, so I'm going to have to go through like the superficial stitching in here. So I'm just pulling the closest single stitch up and working through those. Whoop. I can get under there. Trying to do two at a time. There we go. Pulling through those, getting closer. All right, now I'm only going to go through one more. I'm not going to go through both of those because, again, I don't want it coming through the same space. So you don't want it to slip out the back side or out the front side, and you don't want to see it from the outside of your purse. And then I'm going to go 1, 2 twists, pull tight. And I don't pull as tight on the first go round because I don't want it to change the way the work looks. You might actually pull the stitching tighter if you do that on the first go. It's the second knot that you want to really pull that nice and tight. And now I can snip both ends. And that's going to be on the inside of my bag. And we have officially finished 1 out of 4 of our straps being held into place. Here we are making progress. I have attached my straps on both sides, and I've already sewn up one of the straps on the top to create this nice rounded sturdy strap. So I am going to show you guys how I did this strap in case you were wondering. Show you guys, get all this other stuff out of here. I already had another project in the bag, and the bag isn't even finished. What I decided to do here, I'm going to go ahead and measure out. I like to do double the amount of yarn that I'll need. So I like to measure around twice. Let's see, I've got some scissors right here. Okay. So now I've got my length to use. And I decided, as you can see on this side, I decided to start my sewing just as the bag hit the top of the bag. All right, so that's where I tried to line that up so that I started my cinching just as the strap hit the top of the bag. So I'm going to do the same thing over here. Okay, so I'm going to squeeze this, try to make sure this is nice and even. Squeeze this together, and I'm going to go with these two. All right, so I'm just going through the V at the top of each stitch. So I'm going to pull this through, just leaving myself a smallish end to weave back up into the strap once I'm finished. All right, and I'm just going to use a whip stitch. So I went in through this side, and I'm going to continue doing that. I'm going to go in through the same side every single time. Just like that, and I'm going to pull that tight. And I'm just going to go in again through the top stitch and through the one right across from it, and then pull that tight. And continue this all the way around. I'll just do a couple here so you can see. And that's all you have to do. I just keep pulling it tight, and you can't even see it. Creates a nice invisible stitch, and just creates this really nice tubular rounded strap style that you can see over here. So I'm going to finish this out, and we'll meet back on the other side and I'll show you how I weave these ends in. Okay, so I made it all the way around my straps. You can see now I have two all the way around, and I just pulled this last one tight, and this is nice and even with the top of my bag, which is where I wanted it. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go through that same space that I just went through, go through those same 2 stitches. But before I pull it tight, I'm going to stick my sewing needle right back through that space and create like a little knot there at the end. And I'm going to pull that tight, and then I'm going to weave up underneath these stitches that are nice and close to where I tied off, just kind of one loop at a time. And then what I did with the other one is I continued this all the way up, and I wasn't going through the center, because you see you can stick that needle right up into the center since you created a tube here. I was actually going through stitches, and I worked probably about an inch or 2 up the strap through these stitch spaces, like just through some of the loops that I could fit through, working myself away from the edge. And once I got high enough up, there we go. Once I got high enough up, I did actually run my needle through the tube section up about halfway up the tube, I would say. There you go. And then once I was happy with how far I was able to fit, you can see that's more than halfway through. That's when I snipped the end and pulled that apart, and that disappeared into the tube. So that's how I wove that end in. So the only thing that I now have left, we'll lift this up again. The only thing I have left is deciding how I wanted to attach the shoulder strap, okay? And now you can, again, you could always just attach it to these stitches here, but I thought it might be nice to have something attached so that it doesn't pull these loose. This is a finished one, so this is going to go right here on the side. I'm going to attach it just like I did these, and the strap will be able to attach right on here, right? So that way you're not going to be pulling on your bag. All right, so to make that, super quick to make these. So we are going to chain 4. We're going to work single crochet across the chain, and I'm working into the back bumps of the chain, but you can work into the other side as well. Either way works, it's just a preference. So I'm working 3 single crochet stitches across that chain, and that is my first row. Chain 1, turn, and I'll work another row of single crochet stitches across. Chain 1, repeat again for row number 3. There we go. And then row number 4, let's make sure I got that right. Yes. Row number 4 is going to start our border. So we're going to chain and turn our work just like we did before. But we're going to work 3 single crochet, and then we're going to work a 4th single crochet into that same space. Turn our work 90 degrees, so we're working down the side of the piece. It's 1, 2, and then the third one will be worked here. This was your chain originally. So work 1 in that first chain space, 2. So work 2 into that same space since that's going around a corner, right? So 2 in that space. And we're going to 1. And then we're going to work 2 into this next space. And this is where you started right here. So we're going to work 2 into that same space here. And then working back down the side of your work. You got 1, 2. And then where you place your third one, you also already placed your first stitch here. So that's going to be 2 in that space. 2 single crochet into that same space. And then you're going to join into the top of this single crochet. And create a slip stitch, pull that nice and tight. I am creating a nice long end so that I can use that to attach it. Pull that through. All right, and I am going to, like I said, I'm going to attach these the same way that I attached the straps. I'm going to do my best to center these in between these two. So I'm going to place this right in here, and I'm going to go off the bottom. So I'm going to try to center it and center these across the bottom, right? So right in the center. So I'll put these on either side, and then we will be all set up, and I will be back to show you the final finished bag. All right, she's finished. I'm so excited. I got these pieces sewn in on the sides, and they work just as I hoped they would. There we go. So I'm going to clip that in here, and clip the other side in. Over here, and I'm just going through 2 of the rows. There we go. Make sure that's on nice and tight. Awesome. Oh, that looks so good. Fabulous. All right, let me flip this camera around and show you what we're working with. Okay, here she is. Ah, in all her glory. There's our bottom. Here is our strap. So let me put it this way. Here we go. Okay, back up. I'm gonna put this down a little bit so you guys can see everything. Okay, there we are. And like I said, my goal was for me to be able to close this and it still be comfortable. There we go. I'm going to tie it. I do want to shorten my straps, so I do want to tie the knot a little bit closer and cut the end off and adjust that because they are super, super long. But that is okay for now. All right, so now I can wear this. I feel like I need to lower it even more so you guys can see. There we go. Yeah, fabulous, and I can adjust this. That's why I loved that they had the adjustable shoulder strap. So that way if I want it up a little bit higher, I can do that. And then obviously, since that comes off, we also have our straps. I probably could have made the straps a little bit longer, but I do feel like they're gonna stretch out over time and with use. And I did want to pack this full of yarn so that we can see what it would look like full of yarn. So, or at least full of stuff so that we can see what the weight does to it. So let's do, let me see, what do we have that's at least a little heavy? Let's do some of our ribbon yarn from right up here. I think you guys, oh, you can still see me. So we're gonna throw some ribbon yarn in here. That way you'll see it with some weight. Okay. Oh yeah. So now we've got quite a bit of weight in there, and you can see that kind of bulging around. I love that this yarn keeps a nice shape to it. This is heavy with all that yarn. So, oh yeah, and that lowers these straps down a little bit for me. So that's what that looks like full of yarn. And we're also going to test out, and I have to say, attaching these like this, I feel like that's really going to help keep from stretching out the bag too much around the handles. I feel like that looks really nice. We're also going to see what this looks like. Yep, that was my goal. So now we're going to be stretching this instead of stretching the bag. And I think that's going to be really nice. So let's close her up. Again, I'm going to tie that off, and we will see what it looks like. Crossbody and full of yarn. Okay, so I've got my crossbody strap. Cross it over. Oh, that's awesome. That is fabulous. So fabulous. Just walk along with my yarn. Oh, that's lovely. What a fun project. I really hope you consider trying one of these out. This was a really fun one to do. Like I said, I've never used a base like this, and I've never used the attachable strap. So really fun project. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know if you'd like to see more videos like this where, you know, I know technically this is a tutorial, but kind of was flying by the seat of my pants. So you can really see that creative process of, you know, maybe there's things that I started with that I didn't actually do like I thought I was going to be able to do them. You know, but I did have an idea in mind. It did work out like I thought it would. I wanted the drawstring. So yeah, let me know what you think. Let me know if you're going to try one out. Everything that I used to make this bag, you can find the links in the description of this video. If you have any questions, you can comment there as well. And let me know what else you'd like to see. If you want to see more like this, or if there's other things you'd like to see tutorial-wise or yarn review-wise or any of that, you can always let me know in the comments. And until next time, happy hooking!